Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this webinar. It's entitled Using Chef Automate for Infrastructure Management. But we're going to go through more than just Automate, because a lot of what Automate is it ties into everything else that Chef does. So we have Chef Infra, which is the client running on devices, and we have Chef Infra Server, which is the server that stores your cookbooks and profiles and all your content. There's compliance, so any inspect policy profiles that you create are also stored here. And if you're into CI/CD work, there's also a dashboard in Automate for Habitat. So what we'll talk about is the policy as code framework that sort of covers that whole ecosystem of things I just talked about. We'll look at Chef Automate from a high level, but that'll include some specific examples of using Automate live. So hopefully the demo gods are on our side, and I'll show a demo with that. And that'll largely show how Automate and Infra and inspect, so from a compliance standpoint, how that works together. And we'll save some time at the end for Q&A. And as Risa said, there's a Q&A chat as part of this webinar. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. Let me just move some things out of my way. Okay. So policy as code. What is policy as code? We talked a lot about infrastructure as code, but Chef is really highlighting today that automation is much more than just the infrastructure, right? So you're setting security and rules and making immutable objects, and you want policies that you're using in your organization to be applied and to be readily viewed, so you can see the results of that, so you can check out at a glance and know everything is in place and the way you want it to be. So what does that look like in the Chef ecosystem? You start with developing your code using Chef Workstation, which is a freely available kit of tools, which includes Knife, Chef, Inspect, Habitat, Cook Style, a couple other things in there. It's freely available to install on any Linux, Windows, or Mac system. And it allows you to interact with your Chef Infra Server, whether it's on-prem that you've spun up in your own environment, in the cloud, and you're able to do really everything to manipulate your code with that combination of Workstation and your Automate / Chef Infra Server. And then Automate itself is aggregating that data and presenting it to you in a way that can be consumed easily with dashboards, as we'll see. But you can also set up role-based access control so that you can give different people in your organization different access to things. So developers can be editors and administrators, and maybe people in your audit team just need to be viewers of certain content. So we'll talk a little bit about that. All of this ecosystem works on an API, essentially, that is feeding data from your nodes to your Infra Server to your Automate instance, and providing just a wide array of information. And a lot of the information can be acted upon as well. So resources like how much memory is left and things like that. Those are things that you can act on. So this is, I always like to show the Chef Workstation download page. If you're still using Chef DK, please migrate to Chef Workstation. Chef DK was deprecated at the end of the last year. Workstation is a drop-in replacement for it. And as you can see, it runs on lots of different platforms. But why update? Because it gives you features that we'll be talking about today, particularly around the inspect, which is the compliance profile kind of content, which you just can't do with Chef DK. And there have also been some other improvements you can imagine over the last year and a half plus that are now in Workstation. So check that out when you get a chance, and be sure to install that. So as I talked about, there's this connection between the Chef server and Workstation, but obviously the biggest connection is between Chef server and the Chef infra client. All that activity that you create your cookbooks, you create your profiles, you apply them to nodes. That application to nodes means you're pushing your code to your Chef infra server, and your infra server is sharing that with all your nodes. This is the Chef paradigm, and it's been like that for quite a bit of time. Automate gives you visibility into this process in a GUI that allows you to really see everything that's happening. So in my little screenshot here, you can do, I've done a Chef client run, which kicks off the agent on this particular Ubuntu node. And what's happening during that process? It's reaching out to my Chef infra server. The infra server is checking that it has the proper run lists and profiles, in running that stuff. The server is very highly scalable, and you can be running thousands of nodes depending on your configuration. And the client itself is doing a lot of the work on each node so that it's gathering data and doing the tasks that you want performed. Automate gives you the ability to see this stuff in quite a bit of detail as you're going along. So if you have hundreds or thousands of nodes, it is really ideal for your use case. So what's inside Chef Automate? It consists of these UIs and dashboards. And the things I look at the most, I'm working in Automate every day, are my infra client runs. So when my systems run, and I have set them up so that they run every 30 minutes, I can check that dashboard, see the status, see if there's something failed or something went gray, meaning, gee, my infra server hasn't been able to contact that device. What happened to that device? Dropped off the face of the planet. I can see the compliance status. And this is when I'm applying my profiles, which are, I'm testing certain states of a node. If there's a cookbook I create and use all the time called Create User, which creates an admin user on my machines with my credentials all ready to go. I want to know that that's installed and ready and that user exists. So I have a profile that checks for the existence of that user. And I can use Automate to see that, yep, it's in there and it's available. And then policy files, which have been enhanced a lot lately with some improvements with how compliance is now embedded within a cookbook. So you can use policy files now to move all your cookbook content and inspect profiles directly to the server. One of the keys that's great for me working in my lab, or you working by yourself, but most of us really work in teams. And one of the great advantages of Automate is it enables a lot of visibility into your work and your outcomes for people beyond your workstation. You know, you don't have to someone come and huddle over your code or look at a Git repo to look at something. There's actually ways to view, a lot of different people in the organization can look at Automate with different levels of authority. And we'll show you a little bit of that. The other thing too is we all use a lot of tools, ServiceNow, Slack, Elasticsearch, the public clouds like AWS and Azure and GCP. Automate enables you to integrate, send notifications to ServiceNow, for example, that can be acted on and scripted into other workflows that you have. There's quite a bit of flexibility there, and I'll be showing off some of that as we go through. When Automate is up and running, and by the way, there are some good docs on docs.chef.io for getting started quickly. I've also created some blog posts on setting up automate and infra very quickly. There are marketplace images as well that you can use and spin up. And it is free to use for 60 days, which is quite a bit of time to really kick the tires. But what do you see when you log in? And we'll go into this in more detail in the demo. But here you're looking at cookbook views and actual cookbook content. I can see all my nodes. I can see policy groups. I can see different profile features and much more. Compliance is my favorite because it's sort of where everything rolls up, and we'll show some of that in a bit. Ultimately, Automate is very powerful control plane with dashboards that are pretty. There's a lot going on behind them. It's pretty sophisticated. There's a lot of I/O and stuff that's happening to present the information to the GUI. And they give you an interactive summary of what you're looking at. And you can drill down into content. You can drill down into individual nodes. You can drill into policy groups and see a range of different things. And the integrations you can see and update and change as you go along. And one of the nice things too, from a compliance standpoint, we have built-in capacity to export results of scans as CSV or JSON files, which can be great in facilitating sharing across your teams. We have, in addition to what I just talked about, there's the role-based, policy-based authorization. Really follows this idea of projects where you're adding different work, cookbooks, and other kinds of content to projects, and then you can set roles for members of those projects and teams so that you can again share easily across the board in ways that are important, I think, to any modern organization. As I said before, real-time integration is important. Here, I'm showing you a ServiceNow integration and some compliance data that's been fed to that, and I'll show this in the demo as well. We made this, pretty painless to integrate. Using your credentials here in this case for ServiceNow, which is a built-in available notification integration, but there are also webhooks, so there's a wide array of other kinds of services that you want to tie in notifications to. A lot of us use cloud accounts, and you're managing nodes that aren't just on-prem, or might be a mix of on-prem and in the cloud or different clouds. Automate allows you to pretty easily ingest data from those nodes and take advantage of some of the advanced features in OHI, which is like reporting tool on system information. And AWS instances have unique information that identify them as being AWS instances, and same for the other cloud platforms. But being able to integrate that right into Automate means that, and there's actually an auto discovery feature in Chef that you can use with some of these cloud providers, but you can integrate them pretty easily. Usually, like with AWS, you're using your IAM credentials to make those secure bonds between Automate and your cloud services. It bears noting too that the Automate API is available so that you can check out quite a bit of content and manipulate different activities using the API. This is separate from the infra server API, which provides another level of control for application anything that you want to perform, you can basically perform through some other tool. And Automate is obviously taking advantage of all that. So let me switch over to the demo, and I'm going to switch my screen to a workstation here. So bear with me a second. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. I'm not sure. Can someone confirm that you can see my desktop, Risa? Is that what you can see?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll dive into the environment here a little bit. Let me just move another couple of screens away so I can see. So this is the Automate dashboard. And what I've done in my environment, I've set up Chef Automate and Chef Infra Server in a local VM. But as I said, I could do this in AWS as well. Pretty much anywhere you can deploy it in about 15 minutes on-prem if you're looking to do that. So I have that, a VM running that server. I have my workstation that you're looking at right now. And they're sitting on a network where they can communicate. I've also done this if I'm integrating ServiceNow or some other remote service. I might spin something up in AWS, so it can take full traffic incoming and outgoing, which is important. So in the workflow here, so what I've done is, I'm going to go over to a cookbook. I have a cookbook here called Run Chef Client. This is a simple cookbook, and I'm running here in VS Code on the workstation. I've created a repo, and in that repo, I've used the generators to create my cookbook. Let me just get rid of that. This is very straightforward, and I'm checking because I want this to run on both Linux and Windows systems. I've put some logic in here to say, hey, if it's Windows, do this. If it's anything other than Windows, do this. And in this case, I'm setting different credentials, and I want this chef client to run every 30 minutes. So on Windows, I'm creating a task using the Windows task resource. On Linux, I'm just using a cron resource. This is very basic, and there's a lot of ways actually to do this. One of the things you'll notice is this include profile, which is something new with Chef Infra Client 17.5. Which is just a few weeks old, that allows me to include a compliance folder within my cookbook. And in this, there's profiles and then a specific profile called client run, and it has my controls. And here I just have a couple of controls, again, checking if it's Windows or not. And I'm checking to make sure that the Windows task exists. This could obviously be more sophisticated, but it's basic. And then a cron job, which checks for the cron tab to include certain information. So normally what I would do once I've completed something like this is bootstrap a node and then upload my content to my infra server. And that might look like knife upload book. And it's called Run Chef Client. The demo gods aren't liking me today. Let me just check my credentials file. I think I moved this temporarily. Okay, that looks all right. So I'm just going to skip over that. And we'll just assume that it worked. I'm not sure why it's not. I'll come back to that. So I'd upload my cookbook using Knife. The modern workflow is also using policy files, and you can see in here that I have a policy file RB, which is created when I'm using my generator to create this content, and it's using my local repo for it. And the nice thing about this is when I'm using the policy file process using chef install and chef push, bundles all the stuff together in my cookbook recipes, my profile into one immutable artifact, which I can then push to the server. So I'm just showing this workflow just to give you an idea of the kinds of stuff that's going to be shipped into Automate itself. So here I am in the Automate dashboard. Let me look at the infrastructures tab. So in here, you can see it's blue, which means good. And I have 3 nodes that I've bootstrapped. I have a Raspberry Pi, an Ubuntu VM, and a Windows 10 server. And in each one of these, I can drill down into it, click on it. I can see, oh, it's running this version of the Chef client. I can see its IP address. I can see its fully qualified domain name. I can see how long it's been up. I can see it's attached, got these policy names. So this run Chef client is running on this. I know that it's talking to my Chef server looking like this, and an organization, lots of information based on that. But further down below, I can see, oh, here are the resources, and I've put cron on there. This was bootstrapped, and I have it running my Run Chef client cookbook. And I can see that it's green in this view. So each one of my target nodes has its own information, obviously. And there's a lot of other information I could be gathering from my nodes, but this is a basic snapshot. This Ubuntu node, you can see has many more resources because I'm running a lot more stuff on it. I have it attached to a policy named Linux, which puts my Run Chef client cookbook on it. But it also creates that user, a couple files there, and it also puts Kause. So it gives a little balloon with the tux ASCII character when I log into a device. So in one, quick view, I can look at what each node has assigned to it. And I can also see that, hey, it's blue, it's reporting and it's doing its thing. And by the way, you can see that everything is checking in because my Run the Chef client every 30 minutes cookbook is in effect. So you can see everything is checking in. And during this thing, it should check in again because it should do it in about 5 or 7 minutes. So let's see, I'm going to go into
John, just to interrupt, I
sure.
guess that people are still seeing the same event feed.
They're still seeing what?
Event feed. We are in dashboards, event feed, right? Your screen seems to like.
I'm just going to stop my share entirely.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, now we see infra client runs, infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry about that. So just to quickly go back over some of that, here are those nodes on my infrastructure tab. I'm looking at Ubuntu here, all the information about the node. Much of this was gathered during the initial bootstrap, I should add. Here are the actual resources that have been applied. And those have been applied based on the contents of this run list, which are consists of 3 distinct cookbooks. I could also look at the attributes here as well, which are the attributes that are, can be assigned. Under Chef Infra Servers, I see information about my Automate Chef Infra Server, which are running on the same box. I can see its address and an organization that I created. And within that organization, I can see my cookbook here that I've uploaded, the Run Chef client. And the nice thing about this, everything that I created on my workstation, when I did the knife cookbook upload and it failed, the content, here's my recipe itself, exactly the same content that I had before. This is very basic. I only have really an attributes file, which turns on this reporting, and a recipe that's doing its thing over here. But I can drill down into the detail. And that's something that, you know, if you have multiple users with different permissions, you could set them up to be able to see this kind of stuff. Notice I can't edit it, and that's important because you don't want people to be able to just randomly change your code through this interface. So I also have in here my clients, and this is telling me that my Chef Infra Server knows about these 4 clients. The lab validator was created when I initially set up my Infra Server, and then my 3 nodes that are there. If I look at nodes, it gives me a similar view, some summary information as well. And if I click on these 3 little dots over to the right, I can manage the tags, I can edit the run lists. And for example, this Ubuntu 02, I can edit the run list, and you can see it's got all those run lists that we saw in the other view. And I can actually click on some of these and remove them if I wanted to. But I can show you comparing one, which is this RPie, which is just running a single, it just has one run list, one cookbook that's in here. And I can drill down into that. Notice too, I have a Windows 10 node. In this Windows 10 has slightly different list. Same cookbooks because I've created them with logic to work on both Linux and Windows. So I have my client run and my create user on this, but not Cause, because the Windows machine really isn't set up to do that. Also in here, I can see my policy files. These are the content that's related specifically to doing my verifications and my compliance stuff. So in here is my run list as part of that policy, and we'll see a little bit more of that in a little more detail here in a different view. And my policy groups, I just have one policy group right now, but I can see, oh, it's got these 3 policy files attached to it, and these 3 nodes are members of it. Again, I'm able to, you know, quickly get a good view, and obviously you probably have more than 3 nodes in your environment, and you can do some filtering and things like that on that to really narrow your views. Compliance is sort of where all the fun happens. Compliance tab shows, hey, everything, my cookbooks have been applied, my inspect profiles have run, and they've run successfully, and I can see everything is blue. I have a nice blue line showing over time. That's just the last 10 days. If I look over the last 3 months, oh, these didn't come online until September 14th. And I did have some problems back here. I can actually click on these and drill down into them, see what the problem was at the time. I had a couple of failures in both environments because I was playing with something apparently at the time it didn't work. But that's exactly sort of what you're looking to do. I'm just going to go back to the main view. I can look at my profile status and my controls and have they been working over time. The nodes themselves that are having these profiles run on them for my compliance, I can see everything is blue, everything's passed. I can see each node is running as I expect it to. And in each one of these, I could scan and filter. If I had a whole bunch of web servers, for example, I could filter on this. I could, oops, I need to select something. In here and in the filtering, I can choose, you know, only nodes that are on this particular infra server, or the environment is Linux, or the inspect version is something, the platform, whatever it happens to be. So in this case, if I say node name is Ubuntu, it knows, hey, Ubuntu 2 is the only one I have in here. So some nice features to be able to drill down. The profiles, again, this is just another way of showing the different profiles. And each one of these, you can see not only the profile, but versions. And this is something that with policy files, I'm doing versioning in my code. I'm adding and updating the version, and I can see that detail here. I can also see, and I'll show it in a different view, versions that I've put up here. If I click on one of these, I should be able to see here's the control that I have in place, and I can see that it's critical. I set it at 7. It's definitely blue. It's working as I want it to. And this is where I could download the report. Download as JSON or CSV, and it'll export it, and it'll prompt me. I'll just do it here. Upload it. Prompt me to open a text editor here locally. And obviously I could take and save this or ship it to somebody that I wanted to see it. I can also do a share this way. And notice the timeline says last 24 hours. You can tune that and then have your reports also be tuned to do the same thing. If I click on profiles, and I just want to jump over to this one. These are the profiles of the controls, and I have my run chef client every 30 minutes control. And the nice thing about this view is it not only tells me, oh yeah, that's the control similar to the other view, but I can click on it and expand and see exactly what the controls are that are being applied. Same content, very similar to what we saw in the view of cookbook content in here as well. So pretty easy to move back and forth to check the status and see if some code is doing exactly what you expect it to do. But one of the advantages too of profiles, these are two that I've uploaded, but when this completes, it's loading. Excuse me. You see that there's 497 available. These are chef created profiles that check, and as you can see, everything from AIX and Amazon to there's Apple, Red Hat, Windows, different things. In fact, if I search for Red Hat in here, you can see the list narrowed. This is a CIS standard Red Hat Enterprise Linux 5 benchmark. And some people still using 5 and not 7 or 8. But here's a Red Hat server CIS profile that I can actually view in here, and I can get it, which means I can just add it to my local profiles and begin applying this. You can see this has 190 controls in it, and they range from critical to minor. And just like my personal one, I can see the content of it, the impact, what exactly is being checked, that this is in place. We also, for paid customers, have remediation cookbooks that can basically ensure that a node, when it's applied, those cookbooks are applied, solves all of these controls. I could run this profile on any of my nodes right now, see errors that are happening, and I can go through and apply waivers, which there are certain elements of a profile that I don't want applied, but you can see I could have waived profiles over here, and there are none right now. Skipped profiles, again, there are different use cases of these kinds of things, but at a glance, which are failed, and currently I have 0. One of the things that we talked about was the integrations with other tools, including their notification data feed, and then node integrations that we'll take a look at. Here, I've created a notification for ServiceNow, and we have two built-in ones, one for Chef Client runs. So every time a Chef Client runs on any of my nodes that Automate and Chef Infra Server are keeping track of, it'll report that. And an inspect compliance scan, which anytime there's a compliance failure, it will report that to ServiceNow. These, when you create a notification, depending on what it is, you're giving it a name, you're selecting the type. And in the case of ServiceNow, it's going to prompt me for my username and password, for example, for that. It'll give you a webhook URL, and there's some information on the the docs.chef.io on how to set this up. But I could also use, Slack integration, and it'll publish that information as I define it, and other webhooks which can be more generic. Cancel out of there. So what does this look like? In this case, I have, and ServiceNow likes to log me out all day long. I'm sure you feel my pain. I've gone ahead and done a little search here for the Chef tooling, and there's a free plugin for ServiceNow that once installed enables these views, and there's also information on setting that up on docs.chef.io. But in this case, I'm looking at my Chef Infra client runs, and I can see, hey, here are the different things. I haven't, let's see if I refresh it. This might take a second, but I can see, this run, and if I chose all, it'll show me over time. But that it ran, in this case, my automate.chef.lab is my server, but I can click on the incident number here in ServiceNow, and I can see exactly what happened in this case, and there was a converge failure. If I click on this link, notice it's got even though this is an internal address, my computer knows about it and would open my Automate dashboard to this problem. You can see error details. There was a gem problem on that particular thing because I had messed something up, whatever happened to be, gives you the time and date. It also knows that my user account created this incident. So if you're working in ServiceNow, you can pass through that kind of information on your various different users. As you can see, there's a lot of different tests running in here. I could search by different aspects of whatever's been fed over. So I can search by a different user or creation date in here. And that information is being sent along by Automate to ServiceNow. So also under settings, we have node integrations, and you can create integrations with AWS, Azure, and Google right out of the gate. Provide a name, and notice as for AWS as the API and EC2. Same for Azure, not so for GCP. But I would enter my IAM credentials in here, specify a region, and you can add tags too to say if you have a company with specific kinds of rules on naming things that you could filter, you could add those tags into here. But what that enables me to then do is see nodes that are in my particular region, and then I can act on them. This particular one, you'll see unreachable for a number of them because they might be down, they might just be turned off, but Automate is still aware of them. Finally, what I want to show is projects. We talked about role-based access control. When you create a project, and I created one here called our shared project, I can create specific rules for this project, and then I can set policies based on it. And you can see when I created it, it created essentially 3 policy groups right out of the gate. And I could create admins or other users based on available policies, policy roles, but I can see I have editors and owners and viewers in this case. And if I click on any one of those, I know that I haven't added anybody, but I can see that, okay, then the metadata about it is doing that. There are no members in here. If I go into my users, I currently only have one local user, but I could create other additional users, add them to existing or new teams that I want to create. And that combination of the users and assigning them to policies for projects narrows the view into what different people in your organization need to have to view the different content within Automate. I'm just going to stop sharing, switch back over. Not having great luck with my sharing today, but hopefully you can see that. So just a quick summary, one view of all the states of your systems, regardless of what type of systems they are or where they are, if they're on-prem or in the cloud or a mix of those. It's ideal for large enterprises where you have hundreds or thousands of nodes that you're needing to keep track of and know specifically what versions of things are running on them, and just a wide array of information at a glance. Allow different users with different permissions. And I like these examples from developers who are either admins or editors to auditors who just want to view the content. You can set that up. You can see the infrastructure state of different nodes at a glance, which is what we saw under that infrastructure tab, the compliance state of each node, which shows the results of inspect profiles, and I could drill down into the various content. There's an InfoServer and Automate Getting Started guide. There's also a blog post on the Chef blog that I've done, and some videos on YouTube about setting this up and setting up Automate and InfoServer with Workstation to get it all working together. There's some docs links here as well. And we're working right now on really updating with the modern best practices as well, because there's been a lot of improvements. But these resources will give you a good jumping off point. Good place if you ever have questions is on our forum, which is discourse.chef.io, and you'll see release information. You can pose questions. You can always find the latest and greatest here. And we also have a community Slack channel I'll make a plug for, that you can reach out to us and other members of the community for questions. So that's the main part of the demo and my presentations. I'm certainly happy to look at answer any questions you might have. One thing that I should note too is that Automate is really going to replace our other Chef Manage, which has a different kind of paradigm, but a lot of the functionality that you're used to in that cloud offering will be available in Automate, which can be run on-prem or in cloud instances. Any questions? Okay. With that, if there aren't any, I'll pass it back to Raisa. And if you do have questions, go to Discourse or the Slack, community Slack channel, and feel free to ask whatever you need.
Thanks, John. Thank you everyone for attending the webinar today. We hope that it was very informative for you all. So if you like what you saw today, we encourage you to share the presentation with your teammates and professional network. We will share the on-demand webinar, that is a recorded webinar, with you very soon. We will email it to you as soon as it's ready. And you will be able to access it using the same audience link that you're using now. So with that, thank you again and have a great day. Thank you, John. Thanks for your time. Have a good day to you. Bye.
Bye-bye.